Okay, call the meeting to order, and thank you for everyone showing up. Joan, you want to join us? Okay. I mean, you know, it's just we got a seat for you. First order of business is the pledge. If everyone please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have a couple of motions. Geraldine, put your glasses on.
I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda to remove from the second reading policies 5293, representation in district, and 604.9, meet and confer, and 604.18, district committees, to the first reading on the agenda.
Second. Thank you. So, by way of explanation, by the way, there's these will come back because there are other policies that have to lay down before we do these.
So they're moving from second to first.
Yeah, we got a little ahead of ourselves, but that's okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
I'd like to make a second motion. A motion to amend the agenda to add executive session after announcements to the agenda. Our good faith reason as to not getting it on this agenda is that we will be hearing a tort claim that was just filed with the district and the board was just made aware of. Executive session will cover a tort claim and personnel matter.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. I guess we have consent agenda.
I make a motion we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comments or questions?
No?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. I believe this is where we have Ms. Howells come up and talk about the budget.
Good evening. Oops.
Open it here.
Is this great?
It's on.
You're on.
Good evening. Let's see, I'm going to review our fiscal year 2017-2018 budget. And the period for that budget is July 1st, 2017 to June 30th of 2018. As a point of information, that is concurrent with our state of Idaho's budget cycle. This document will be posted tomorrow on the district's website. And I realize that the print here is small, but really the purpose tonight is just to share with the board what types of things you will find in our budget document, and if patrons have questions, that you can refer them to this document. So the first thing to share is this is not the document that we send to the State Department of Education. It is basically a document that has general account ledger numbers and dollar amounts, so that if you don't understand sort of the language of the general account ledger numbers, it's meaningless. And so this is something that I put together that hopefully for those in the community that are interested in the pertinent information in terms of the budget for the school district, they can refer to this document. It's meant to have some charts, pie graphs, and to drop all of the school district financial lexicon and just make it a sort of nuts and bolts type of executive summary. I'm going to move through the highlights and the general content, and I would refer to you that the page numbers are, as I refer to them, are on the bottom right. So first, this tells you that the school district's board meetings are here at the Pend Oreille Event Center. We generally meet twice a month, and that during the July board meeting, that is when both the board chair and the vice chair are nominated and agreed upon. Next, it shows you the schools that we serve and the grade configurations. This is the first time we've added the homeschool academy. It also shows you who the central office administrators are, certified, the business team, and then it moves on to the school buildings and the principals, and then our other non-certified directors. It also gives you a district overview that shares with you that our annual budget is $32.8 million next year. We approximately have 500 full-time equivalent employees. Of the 164 public school districts in Idaho, we're the 22nd largest in terms of student enrollment. And that enrollment we project will be about 3,670 students next year, with a general fund budget, which is the major operational fund, of $29.2 million. That includes a 2-year property tax levy called a Maintenance and Operations Supplemental Levy, which is $8.5 million next year. Last year, because the State Department obviously doesn't have this information for the upcoming year that we're discussing tonight, our school district ranked 52nd in terms of general fund spending per average full-time daily attendance, or that's $8,563. All the other funds for our district, mostly federal, some other very small state and some local grants, total $3.6 million next year. I also asked the State Department of Education to prepare this document. It shows that, as I said, we are ranked 52nd in terms of per pupil spending. You'll see other districts around us. West Bonner is ranked 40th. Boundary, I heard that there's some Boundary school district members here tonight. They're ranked 71st at $7,404 last fiscal year. Lakeland at about 67, Coeur d'Alene 66, Post Falls 57, Forestburg Charter 5,600. And this is a really good presentation because it shows you that there are, particularly for some of the smaller school districts, there are some other property tax levies that that are non-voter approved, that we're in the majority where they have to be voter approved. But you're going from a tiny, tiny district, Avery, at $71,000 per student, down to, what's the lowest, the North Idaho STEM at $4,000. This is just meant to give you a visual presentation of the structure and supervising responsibilities of the district. And then I'm just going to spend the lion's share of the time on this budget summary message. So again, I've said that our budget next year is $32.8 million. For those of you sitting on the board or have been attending meetings, coming to this proposed adopted budget, and I should have said at the outset, don't let me forget that this does require a board motion to approve when I'm done. Don't let me forget. To come to this start, this is an 8-month process, multiple school board meetings, mostly concentrated in the fall on coming to our supplemental levy ballot measure, which occurred in March of 2017, but it fully represents a third of the budget. Let's see, things that were, the factors that were important into sculpting this budget were, what was is our school district enrollment going to be like next year? I've already mentioned the supplemental levy effort. Projecting what the state of Idaho's K-12 appropriation would be. We're now in the 3rd year, we would say, of general recovery with the state of Idaho's economy, and There has been a legislative commitment to continue with the 5-year teacher career ladder allocation model, and that commitment was realized. Projecting what, in this case, what kind of federal funding cuts there would be as a result of a new presidential administration, coupled with the lack of or no reauthorization of our federal forest dollars. So all of those public meetings started in October of 2016 and culminate tonight. As I mentioned, that the Idaho legislature has now, this would be the third appropriation where there has actually been an increase, not only to K-12, but also to education, all education budgets in Idaho. We still, however, as of last year, would have lagged the pre-recessionary appropriation by 6% inflation adjusted. The legislature has committed next year to implementing year 3 of the teacher career ladder allocation model, and also for the first time deliberated on including a health insurance component. We are the only state agency budget that does not have a health insurance component until this next or upcoming fiscal year. So ultimately, the Joint Finance Appropriation Committee increased K-12 appropriation by 6.3% next year. And I would say, and I purposely put it in this budget message, that while the district truly appreciates the additional appropriation, which for us was $1,130,000 increase over the current appropriation. What I really think is important are the broader concerns of the overall funding formula, and that the state has appropriated additional funds for the Public School Funding Committee, to continue on in year 2 of their work. Reminding you that the funding formula really has not been crucially examined in 21 years. Our state appropriation is just under 70% of our budget. The supplemental levy, a property tax levy, is 30%. Some nuts and bolts of the funding formula are that in the state of Idaho, we are paid on average daily attendance of, not on average daily attendance of students, but not on enrollment. And that there are also varying salary allocations for the 3 different categories of staff: certified, classified, and administrative categories. That there was a sweeping change to basically the funding, the largest funding component, which is how the state pays for teachers, which is now that started July 1st of 2015. That's called the career ladder allocation model, and it singly drives the largest portion of the appropriation annually. Things that are important, we always look at our enrollment. We also now, for many years consecutively, have built in what we call an enrollment buffer. Next year it's $200,000. That's for students that show up in different schools and different grades where that requires additional staffing. Our supplemental levy is an increase over the expiring levy on June 30th of $600,000. We also, in next year's budget, made $600,000 of cuts. And those cuts amounted to 3.5 certified teachers and about 6 full-time classified positions. We've also budgeted another $130,000 in contingency to mitigate unanticipated expenses next year. And then I've also written here that, and depending on the austerity of the federal funding cuts, the federal budget would be supposedly released in August of 2017. They'll probably be running late. And depending on the austerity of those cuts, we may, as a district and board, need to assess next steps. We also have what's called fund balance. Fund balance refers to cash on hand at any point. Some people like to call it a reserve. Our fund balance is projected at the end of this fiscal year to be $2.2 million. And for the first time in the district's history, we will make a contribution to our plant fund to start establishing a fund balance there, because we have no funds in the plant fund, and I do mean none, and we have no reserve policy specific to a plant fund. Yes?
Where's the $100,000 that we have set aside in case the sewer system in Sagal fails?
It is in the, it's a good question. If you wait maybe 2 more minutes, I'll show you specifically.
Good.
Then the next bullet says, I've mentioned that we have a property tax levy, a maintenance and operations supplemental levy. It's 1/3 of the general fund revenue, and it's absolutely fulcrum to the operations of the district. I believe we are the only district in the state that, in terms of presentation, breaks out the supplemental levy, not only in this budget document, but also in our annual external audit. However, when we report to the state of Idaho, it's considered general fund dollars. And we do underlined here that the figures that are presented on pages 16 to 22 include the supplemental levy revenues and expenses. Finally, our district has a lease purchase debt that's now, let's see, it expires in about a little over 3 years, in November of 2020. The principal balance is $166,000 currently, and the debt obligation next year in terms of expenditure is $51,000. We also have in our supplemental levy $155,000 budgeted for capital improvement in technology. And I'm saying here that the school board is committed to improving our capital assets of the district. This fiscal year that's expiring in August of 2016, you're well aware that we ran a $55.1 million failed plant levy. And really there, in this budget before you tonight, are no substantive financial resources to deploy for near-term capital improvement. So the overall budget increase is 3.8%. This just shows you, since we became a district in July of '99, the history of our enrollment, and you'll see on the way far right now we're adding the homeschool academy. So to Steve, to Chair Youngdahl's question, in fiscal year 2005, our school district developed or adopted a reserve operating policy which said every fiscal year we will contribute $100,000 to the reserved portion of our fund balance. And in order to tap into the reserved portion, it would take board action, and that the goal was to be 5% of the revenues of the general fund. We're not there yet. The balance right now is $1.3 million, which includes the $100,000 for the Sagal sewer system. And this budget includes not only the $100,000 annual contribution, and then I put here in bold, for the first time we are contributing an additional one-time $100,000, so a $200,000 contribution next fiscal cycle, because the level of our fund balance is in my opinion, below where it should be to be financially positioned and stable. This just gives you sort of a picture. The red is the reserved part, and the yellow is the unreserved part of our general fund balance. All school districts report to the state of Idaho in a very specific format, and there are different categories of revenue and expenses, and this shows you on the left, in the fiscal year that ended June 30th of 2016, in the specific categories. The general fund is on top, and then all the funds are on the bottom of the presentation, and it shows you the percentages of the expenditures, and where we, of course, vary from the district. The statewide average is under our debt. We have no debt. You'll see the state debt is about 7.4%, and we were, 0.2%, and that for capital objects, the state was 10%, and we were last fiscal cycle 3.4%. This is a document that is specific to our school district. The State Department of Education, after every district submits their audit, and so you'll see this says through June 30th of 2016, so last fiscal year. These are all the categories of revenues, and then below it all the expenditures, and I will show you the fund balance. So if you are interested, for any school district in Idaho in this format comparatively, this is what it looks like. This is the notice of budget hearing. All public entities, not only school districts, must use this format, where in the fourth column you'll see the proposed budget for next fiscal cycle, 2018, and for the general fund, and then the eighth column is all of our other funds. Then you have to show the adopted budget from the prior year, and then the 2-year actuals. And for many districts, this is actually the document or the presentation probably that comes before boards, just singly this piece of paper. The next several pages, pages 15 through 21, show you the adopted budget in the left column for Lake Pend Oreille School District for 2016-17, and then the proposed budget before you. So if you see this negative $85,000 under reserve, remember we're contributing $200,000 to our general fund designated reserve. And then, when we received our health insurance premium through the Blue Cross of Idaho, it was much lower than we anticipated, and so we had $115,000 that we agreed in April as a board to carry forward to offset 2019 potential health insurance expenses. So $200,000 less the $115,000, that's why it's a negative $85,000. So this shows you that the general fund revenues will be about $29.2 million. And then again, in the very specific categories of how we report to the state of Idaho, it shows you all the different programs. And then we move on to all the other funds, reminding you that the federal forest dollars have not been reauthorized. I do want to say that we've been in regular communication with Senator Crapo's office, and he and a consortium of about, I think it's 15 other senators, have sent now, would have been just last week, a letter to President Trump asking for a 2-year reauthorization. So that's why it's gone to 0. And then I think the other thing to remind you is under our Title II federal appropriation that we've taken a sizable cut. So then finally, the last page is, again, just for our school district and for purposes of presentation. This is the way the ballot was structured. It shows you what our supplemental levy, and next year would be year 1 of 2 years. And that concludes my presentation. Do you have any questions?
Just 1 minute.
Okay.
The other thing that I didn't share is that, as you know, Representative Sage Dixon sits on the funding formula committee, and their first meeting of year 2 of their work is in Boise next Tuesday.
I have a question. How is the homeschool funded?
So, as a point of information, we are the only district that has a homeschool academy in the state of Idaho, and they are funded similar to how our alternative high school students are funded. Essentially, they're looking at hours, you know, and we're paid then because it's different grade configurations, and the state pays kindergarten different than 1 through 3, and that's different than 4 through 6. So the state then looks at what grade they're in and, you know, pays based on the unit. It's called a unit divisor.
And the good news for us is that it was pretty close to break even this year using only state dollars. So very little local dollars came in because our attendance was ended up being greater than we thought it would be. And the good news for us is that the bulk of the dollars that you receive are calculated based on the beginning of the school year. So we'll start much stronger next school year than we started last school year. So
What'd you end up with this year?
boy, close to 40 on the last day, and I think we'll start with 40 to 45 in September.
Wow. Nice. Great job. Anyone have any more questions for Lisa? I mean, it all looks very familiar, so, I mean, I guess the fact that we don't have any questions is probably testimony to how much we've worked on this one.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So then I just need to remind you that we would need a motion that said, you know, we are approving the fiscal year 2018
Thank you.
Lake Pend Oreille School District budget.
Thank you for that reminder. Geraldine?
Thank you, Lisa. Another wonderful job.
Thank you.
Nice presentation.
Yep. So I'd like to make a motion that we approve the budget hearing for the 2017-18 fiscal year budget as presented by CFO Lisa Halls.
Second.
Moved and second. Any more questions? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you,
Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks,
Another
Lisa.
great job. All right, Melanie, they're all yours.
A whole page of Melanie.
So I would come with a joke that I shared with the superintendent earlier today that when I try to be funny, it doesn't come across well, so I'm just going to try to stick to this.
That was kind of funny though. So.
No. I think you should go for the joke.
At the end, maybe, to wake us up.
Okay. So we'll start with the first reading for some policies that you haven't seen yet. Please ask questions as we go. I'll have some comments along the way, but in this particular group, I've tried to do some strike through and bold and italicizing to point out some of the things that are different with some of these policies. The first,
I'm sorry, I can't remember what we did last time. So, do you want questions as we're going through it, or you want to wait to the end of each one?
Questions
So,
as we go.
if anyone, I'm going to be looking at the same thing you're all looking at, so if y'all have questions, just jump out.
okay. So the first one tonight is policy 5740, which already exists. We're adding some language here. This current policy is specific to certified staff. So I'm adding again language for classifieds in the attempt to make these 5000 series of policy applicable to all staff. So the first change in this is moving what was bulleted item number 1 into the one of the top paragraphs so that it would apply to all staff. And then adding language at the end of the current policy specific to classified staff. And this is modified from the current policy for reduction in force. That one is one of many that hasn't been looked at in about 20 years. So these are, the suggestions here are based on what seems practical. There is no ISBA model for classified staff reduction in force. Okay.
So, wait a second.
Sure.
I know we've done this a lot sooner than 20 years ago. Are you talking about the classified staff part only, or are you talking about the certificate?
Yes, the classified reduction in force policy was last reviewed on July 9 of 96.
Got it.
Okay. So the next little batch here are grouped because they do rely a little bit on each other. The first in this next group is 5250, which is also a current policy. Again, geared more toward certified specifically, and adding language here both from ISBA model and this actually, the classified staff language that's added here is from ISBA model procedure. But since we already had the grievance procedure for certified, it seems reasonable, or policy rather, for certified, seems reasonable to add this also to policy to be applicable to classified. One piece that's here is current policy 602.9 for the probationary period. The only piece that's being incorporated into this is that the probationary period would not be applicable to someone who is in their first 180 days of employment. The rest of the current probationary period policy is not current practice. This policy also would remove the requirement for current policy 604.9, which we've discussed a couple of times. That's the meet and confer policy that indicates that the board would appoint 2 trustees to meet with representatives of classified staff at the request of either group. Policy 5250 allows for classified staff to, Chair Youngdahl's point at the last board meeting, that there's a chain of communication that should happen before the board is approached, and there is nothing in policy that would prevent any staff member or community member from approaching the board directly at any time. The next suggested policy is 5293, which we had also talked about and have moved back to the first reading. This would simply now state that the intent of the board is that employee representatives from each certified and classified positions would be included in any committee work. And then that would also remove the current policy 604.18 would be incorporated into this. Okay. The next in this group is suggested new policy 5320 regarding drug and alcohol-free workplace. This is primarily from ISBA model. We do currently have a drug and alcohol-free workplace on the books policy for both certified and classified. They're identical policies in 2 different places. This would combine those and then be consistent with the ISBA model.
And that's 405.27 and 604.14.
Did you go over these with Brian?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And the transportation director was also had an opportunity to review these for DOT regulations.
Right.
The next in this group is suggested new policy 5737, disciplinary action. This is primarily from current policy 602.10, which applies only to classified staff. This new policy would apply to all. And the strike through and bold here are changes from the current 602.10.
It tells you how old it is. It's
Yeah.
100 County School District.
Right.
I know.
Yeah. The next is a suggested procedure, and just as a point for the board, you are not required to approve procedure or forms that are provided to staff. This is primarily provided as an FYI at this point, but not procedure and forms are not something that you have to make any motion on. This current procedure is based largely on guidance that was provided to administrators over the last couple of years. We developed this with Dr. Meyer when she was here, and with the administrators and the superintendent's input about what the process is, how we want that to look, and then also input from our legal team as well, our legal guidance. And then a lot of that is based also on Idaho code, particularly for certified for probation and separation. So all of those are sort of grouped together, so you'll see cross-references for each of those two. The next group starts in with some of our leave policies. The first one would be new policy 5410 regarding family medical leave. Again, we have current policy for both certified and classified that are identical. And this would combine those and then update based on current practice and changes in the federal family medical leave federal legislation as well. So one of the pieces to point out that's been added is that leave from work due to industrial accident or workers' compensation claim will coincide with family medical leave. So if someone is injured on the job, their family medical leave period would run at the same time that they're off work for workers' comp. And then also added here is continuation of insurance and return to work requirements at the end of the family medical leave period. Those last two paragraphs are from ISBA model policy. The next is 5402, sick leave. This is again largely from current policy 603.4. There is some language that is carried also through the negotiated agreement, but the large majority of this policy would be applicable to all staff. And then you'll see a couple of points at the bottom of that policy that are specific either to certified or classified. The next is 5403. This again would be a new policy, sick leave bank. Again, there's language in the negotiated agreement currently for sick leave bank, and there is a current policy for sick leave bank. Changes here to point out are that the sick leave bank shall not be used for maternity or paternity leave unless there are complications. And that leave awarded under the policy will coincide again with family medical leave. The first paragraph under the sick leave bank council has been modified from current policy to remove reference to the meet and confer committee, which we've already discussed.
Wait, say that again.
The first paragraph under sick leave bank council, there was language in current policy that refers to the meet and confer committee. The next is 5403P. This is procedure for application to the sick leave bank and donations. That again is provided to the board as a courtesy. And then 5403 for F1 would be the form that staff would use to make their application. The next in this group is suggested new policy 5404, sick leave donation program. Again, there's current language in the negotiated agreement and current policy specific to classified staff. Points of note here are the eligibility pieces that have been made more specific. So those, this is a program that is specific to our school district. Not many school districts have this. There's nothing in Idaho code that allows or prohibits. So this is something that's offered as a benefit, really. This would be for someone who either their leave doesn't qualify for the sick leave bank under the pieces we've already talked through, or they've exhausted that and they still need additional time off work. This allows for staff in the district to make direct donations to that specific individual from their own sick leave balance. So it would be available only to those who are in what we consider a benefited position, certified 0.5 FTE or greater, or classified 20 hours or more a week. For an employee or need for leave for the employee or immediate family member who meet the qualifications for sick leave, and that they have exhausted their own leave and any grants from the sick leave bank. Also added here is that sick leave donations can't be requested for any period of workers' compensation. And then a change in language about the donations must be used in the fiscal year. The negotiated agreement right now says that it must be used in the school year, which would be true for certified. For some classified staff, the school year doesn't necessarily apply. So fiscal year would be applicable to all staff. Procedure 5404P, again, is offered to the board as a courtesy. This deals with requesting and making donations for sick leave, donations specifically. And then 5404F1 is the donation form that staff would fill out and return into payroll to make those donations. Suggested new policy 5460 regarding workers' compensation benefits. And there's a point of note here that, again, leave for workers' comp would coincide with family medical leave, and that employees may receive workers' compensation income benefits and use their sick leave simultaneously. Workers' comp only pays a portion of a person's salary while they're off work. The district allows that those employees can use their sick leave to make the balance so that they still continue to get a full paycheck if they have their own sick leave available. 5460P, again, as procedure for workers' compensation benefits, and again offered to the board as a courtesy. Primarily, that procedure is just updating to be a little more practical with our current practice. One of the things, so I'll try to lighten it a little. I liked that in the department supervisor's responsibility, one of them was if the injury is an emergency or occurs after hours, direct the employee to the emergency room and contact Bonner General Hospital and arrange transportation. So I've updated that to say call 911.
Yeah.
We don't need to be trying to get in touch with the hospital at 2 in the morning.
Exactly.
If there were a situation. So. Okay, any questions on those? Oh, you guys are too easy.
It looks good.
I must have given you enough information ahead of time, not just be like. Okay. The next group are a little more specific to pay. This first one is new policy 5810 regarding extra hours and overtime for classified employees. The language from this is largely in current procedure. A couple of points with this one are that hours worked, the definition of hours worked, no longer includes sick leave. So with this policy being presented, overtime would be calculated after a work week of 40 hours worked. That would either be holiday pay or actual hours worked. It would not include sick leave. The federal law doesn't require that holidays be included there, but the district has made the decision to continue that practice. 5810P, again, is procedure that's offered as a courtesy. The next is suggested new policy 5215 regarding the work calendar and payroll. This is largely from current policies that are a bit wordy, and this combines them all into one place.
It's very short and concise.
Yes. What happens next is 5215P, the procedure. So there's much more detail there about how things are processed and what the expectations are of staff in the payroll department and processing.
That's not new. Oh, just
it would be, yes, it is new, but again, not something that the board needs to make a motion on, just offered to you as a courtesy. The next would be new policy 5440. Again, this would apply to all certified and full-time, what's considered full-time classified, 20 hours a week or more. And then there are 2 paragraphs there at the top under paid school holidays that are referenced from current Idaho code regarding holidays. Oh, you guys made this way too easy. Okay, the next ones are so easy, it's not even going to be worth my breath, really. 2200 would be revised out of cross-reference. 5210 would be revised to add a cross-reference, and 5705 also is modified to add a cross-reference. Really? No questions?
Melanie, you did a really good job, though I appreciate having worked in 4 different school districts. This can take a really long time if she has to spend a lot of time explaining everything, but I like how in the policy you had strike-throughs, you had bold, you had italics, you had a precursor to the policies that explained what you were doing, what was changing, so she did a great job.
And just for reference, I should have printed that page, that summary page, because it's very hard to electronically flip back and forth over 30 pages. So just remind me next year.
That's a good idea for future reference.
Because those are really useful tips she put on that summary page. And then I kept trying to...
Well, hopefully we won't have to look at this many again at the same time.
Exactly, because it's a lot to kind of keep track of.
Right. It's first time we've done this, and
21 years.
Yeah,
Right.
a long time. We normally, well, we got a lot behind during the year because we had other things that pushed it out of the way.
Yeah.
And admittedly, these are more housekeeping than they are creating new policies.
Correct.
They're just moving stuff around, eliminating, recoding, and it does make it a lot easier. And it's a lot of work. I'm not downplaying how much work it is for you. It's huge. I get that. But it's for us, it was a lot easier because we're not grappling with a lot of meaty stuff. So. Okay.
So if there are no other questions, you'll see these same suggestions at second reading at the next board meeting.
Okay.
Well, that's a lot of work. Thank you for all the hours that you and your staff put in.
Yeah, I'm certainly not the only one that has had
After
eyes
we've
on
gone
this,
through
so
them, we're
thank you.
just right away, we're not gonna...
Well, and I don't know how she wants to handle it.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do on this? Are you gonna ask about the second reading, or are you gonna go through those?
There's one update to the second reading,
Go.
so I'll highlight that, and then unless there are additional questions, I'd let you make the motion to approve. So the only update from the first reading is to policy 5400, and you'll see under the portion that's designated for classified staff, I've made strike-through and bold since the presentation for first reading. There was a concern brought after the last board meeting that offering a guarantee of employment would put the district in a position that we may not be able to satisfy. in addition to Idaho being an at-will state, the district has never guaranteed any employment, just because of the nature of being publicly funded. When things change, we may have to make staffing changes. So that's one. And then the second paragraph there, for classified staff, we talked through the family medical leave, that during a family medical leave period, the district's required to carry insurance for the employee. So during any other approved leave of absence without pay, the employee would be responsible to pay the full premium of coverage.
Right. Okay.
And those are the only changes from the first reading.
So I will make a motion to approve deletion of policies 404.1, 404.3, 404.4, 404.7, 404.9, 404.10, 600, 602.2, 602.13, 603.3, 603.5, 604.8, and 604.12.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any more questions for Melanie? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Make a motion to approve adoption of new policies 5205, 5400, 5412, 5415, 5442, and 5450, and adoption of revised policies 2210, 5820, and 7110.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any more questions for Melanie? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Melanie.
Thank you.
Melanie, thank you very much. I know that was a ton of work, and
I didn't do it alone, but thank you.
you really jammed it
She said that every time.
at the end of the deal. Okay, so
Does that include a moving of old policies into the 5,000 series?
next
After-
the second reading next meeting.
Yeah. The second reading of these ones we just did, of course.
Do you have any announcements?
Quick one. So you guys heard about the Design for Change at Washington Elementary, and maybe
Yep.
some of you out here have not. But there's a contest called Design for Change USA, and it's a nonprofit group. Is this group that seeks to empower young people to make a difference in their community. So last year, Washington Elementary submitted a proposal to this contest and I cannot remember exactly what their project was last year, and they were one of the finalists in the U.S. They did a great job. And at the last meeting, I asked if anybody wanted to watch the students present their Design for Change this year, and the big prize was you would be able to go to Spain and present your project to other countries across the globe. And while we were there, Andrew Murray and I went and watched. We watched it. They did a great community project on teen suicide. It was very good. And they were talking about, yeah, we get to go to Spain if we win. You know, this is gonna be so great. And I kind of thought to myself, they really think they're going to win. and I always think I'm going to win, right? I mean, that's just, I'm kind of wired that way. Very positive person. But I thought to myself, they're probably not going to win. They kind of seem like they're getting their hopes up a little bit, right? Well, lo and behold, they won.
They won, yeah.
And they went against hundreds of other groups across the U.S. There was a human trafficking from a high school in Seattle, a social justice group out of North Carolina, and hundreds of others. And so they won. So the sixth graders will get 5 of the students will get an all expense paid trip to Spain, Madrid, and they will be presenting their project in front of 22 other countries. And Sandpoint is one of them. It's just amazing. So,
and it is a really cool video. If you haven't seen it, I would encourage you to check it out. It was actually I wasn't surprised they won. I was surprised at the quality of this thing. It was.
When is this trip to Spain?
In November. So these students will be 7th
gosh.
graders, and so they're trying to do some fundraising outside of the school for all of the students on the team to attend with their parents, a guardian as well. So.
Wow.
Keep you posted.
That's big
fantastic.
time.
That's
Yeah,
great.
that is really cool.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
I don't think we have any principals here, do we? Okay.
No, I went to the Clark Fork all elementary school track meet. It was 2 Fridays ago.
Yeah.
And it was fantastic. Clark Fork and Phil's staff, Phil did a great job. I expected with 4th through 6th graders, excuse me, 3rd through 6th graders for that many schools, it'd be just utter chaos. And it wasn't. It was very well done, very organized, and was just pretty cool seeing all the kids from all the different schools come together in one spot and compete and have fun. And it was really well done. It was definitely worth the time if you ever get a chance to go.
And they have really done a lot with that facility.
Yeah, they've done a nice job.
It's really, really
And the
nice.
golf course that Phil's built
Oh,
is where they did the cross-country piece of the meet was nice.
Yeah, and they changed the name too. It used to be Chemic Country Links, and now it's something else. I forget. All right. Okay, I've got a couple. At one of the candidate forums in May, there was a question raised about the perceived conflict of interest in being a PAFE board member and an LPOSD trustee at the same time. I want to reassure our constituents that there is no financial benefit to any board member of either of these organizations, nor is there special influence granted. These two entities are complementary and yet independent. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me personally. I'll be happy to help you understand the roles more clearly and later address any of your concerns. Okay. The other one I have is, if you got nothing to do on Friday between noon and 1, tune in to the AM 1400 or the FM 105. It's the School Zone radio program. It's our second one. It's going to be every other Friday. And we are having none other than Matt and Angie Brass to talk about our track and cross country, and we might put a little technology in too. And he's going to bring some track kids with him. It's going to be a lot of fun. And if you get a chance, tune in.
Okay.
Any other announcements?
Nope.
Nope. All right. Thank you all for showing up. We're done.
Executive.
Whoa! I'm sorry. Yes.
So,
Holy moly!
At this time, I make a motion to move into executive session as provided for in Idaho Code Title 74, Section 206, subsection 1B, to consider the evaluation, dismissal, or disciplining of, or to hear complaints or charges brought against a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual agent, or public school student, and subsection 1F, to communicate with legal counsel for the public agency to discuss the legal ramifications of and legal options for pending litigation or controversies not yet being litigated but imminently likely to be litigated. It was a mouthful.
There was.
Second.
Moving second. All in favor?
No, roll call.
Roll call. Oh, God, that's right. Pearlie.
Yeah.
Joan.
Yes.
Matt.
Aye.
Geraldine.
Aye.
Aye. We're done. We'll be back. We'll be back in open session. All right. We're back in session. Are there any motions regarding the topic that we discussed in the executive session?
No.
Nothing. Okay. Now I get to do this, right? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you all for coming. The meeting is adjourned.